So someone asked me this question. They said, Pastor Sky, do you think there's more than just heaven and hell? Hey guys, how's it going? Thank you for joining us here on Espresso with Sky. I am Pastor Sky, and these are my sidekicks, Chewy and John Wick. Now, if you haven't done so, go ahead, hit the sub, the notification bell, like, all those other different things. But the most important thing for us, guys, is please leave a comment below. We want to hear what you're thinking, and also we want to get your questions to fuel the rest of our content. All right, guys, if you want to support us too, go ahead. We got PayPal and buymeacoffee.com. Yes, you could buy me a latte. All right, guys, so let's get into today's topic. So it's an interesting question of, are there worlds besides heaven and hell? And the answer I'm going to give to you is, yes, there is. And I'm not going to tell you this just because I believe it in my head, because there's evidence in the Bible that there is. You're like, really? Yes, there is. But before we get into this, let's go into the origin of this in-between worlds, okay? Now, the first time we ever heard of these in-between worlds was in the Roman Catholic Church about 700 to 800 years ago, and they called this Purgatory. Now, Purgatory is that in-between world after you die and before you get into heaven. There's this purgatory. Now, this is the place where they say there's temporary punishment and a time of purification. Now, why would you need this? It's because people wanted to believe in this merciful God that was faithful to us, that loved us, that was just and merciful and was very fair. And if you want a fair God, what happens to those people who are like not quite the saint? Or they're not quite like a deep or bad sinner. Where do these people go? And what happens is it brings up a lot of questions we can even bring up today. For instance, right? Do good people go to hell, right? And a lot of people are like, wow, that doesn't really seem fair, God, that you have some good people that are even better than Christians, but the Christian goes to heaven and that person goes to hell even though they lived a better life. What about what we talked about in our other video of people who die before the gospel even reaches their country? What about people who died even before Jesus was born? Or what happens to children that die? All of these questions are things that we're like, wait, if God is really that fair, loving, and merciful, why would he send those people who never even got a chance, who were babies, who were born before Jesus, or those people who were just really amazing, good people, but never got a fair shake at it, right? So, is it that cut and dry? Is it just believe, if you don't believe, you go to, right? This is the thing that we actually have to think about. So let's get into deeper thought. What is the evidence in the Bible that there are other places? All right. The first verse I'll bring up to you. This is, guys, remember, this is actually in the Bible. It's in the New Testament. It's in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 1 through 4. Very interesting verse because it talks about a third heaven. Yes, a third heaven. We're like, third? Just the fact it says third heaven means there's got to be a second and a first heaven. On top of that, it says after going to the third heaven, he goes to paradise. I thought paradise was heaven, or it could be a second heaven, or it could be in the first heaven. There's the first evidence. The second evidence we have is also on the bad side. If you think about this, in Revelation chapter 20, verse 1 and 2, it talks about a place where Satan is thrown into the abyss, which is a bottomless pit. Now, here's the thing. Satan is put in there for only 1,000 years, and then he's thrown into the eternal fire of hell. So, abyss can't be hell if you're only there for 1,000 years, and then after you come out of the abyss, you go to hell. Isn't that weird? It's even weirder when you look at Revelations 20, verse 14. A lot of people thought Hades was hell, but in Revelations 20:14, it says even Hades is thrown into hell. That shows that there are even multiple places in the bad world too. So here's a couple things that we have to figure out also. In the Bible, when God is a very fair God, he knows that there are people who've never heard the gospel, never had a chance. Even at the time of Jesus, did every single Jew at that time hear the gospel of Christ? And the answer is, of course not. So here's the thing. Even in Romans chapter 2, verse 14 and 15, it talks about how non-believers are judged. And interestingly, yes, non-believers are judged in a different way. So even if you look at Romans chapter 7, verse 8, it says, apart from law, sin is dead. So these bring into question like, wait a second, There are people who've never heard. There are people who are judged in a different way, but still they can't go to heaven without believing in Jesus, so where would they go? This last hint I give to you to make you think a little bit even more deeper is in 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 18 through 20. And after Jesus dies on the cross, guess where he goes? He goes to the spiritual prisons to preach to people who disobeyed at the time of Noah. And guess what, guys? Noah's time was how many years before Jesus? It was like 2,300 years even before Jesus was alive. But after he died, he went to preach in not the fiery pits of hell. It was a prison, which is a holding place. So the more and more we look at the Bible, the more and more we see that there's more than meets the eye. But when we oversimplify things, we just say heaven and hell. And if we only oversimplify things, we're going to be stuck with these people that are in the middle. And we're going to be like, wait a second, does God really want all people to be saved? Does he really love everyone? Because if he did, what about these people? And what about those people? And what about these people? I hope that's good, deeper thoughts for you guys. Have an awesome day. Thank you for this honest conversation about God and the Bible. We'll see you guys again. Thank you so much for joining us here on Espresso with Sky. Once again, leave a comment below. I want to hear what you guys really think, and we can discuss and have honest conversation. Everyone, this is a goodbye from Pastor Sky, Chewy, and John Wick. Later.